Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I'm here in New York, so I'd love to hear where you guys are from. South Carolina, love South Carolina. I go there a lot. Keep telling me where you guys are tuning in from. I'm excited to hear. So today is all about fondant cookies, which I'm really excited about. They're a lot of fun to make. They're delicious and they're really easy to make as well. Okay, so we can go to the overhead camera and I'll show you guys all of our supplies that we're going to be using today. And then also I want you guys to let me know if you've ever used fondant before, if you're new at it, if you've used it some, or if you're just scared of it, because you'll see how easy it is today. Okay, so for our tools and products we're using, I have some water and a food safe paintbrush. I have some cornstarch, and I'll explain after what everything is for as well. These are the example of the cookies we're going to be making. So they're fruit slice cookies. So we have a kiwi, we have an orange, a lemon, a watermelon, and I might do a lime as well. Okay, so I also have scissors because I'm using the 4.4 ounce packages of fondant. So I'll need those to open them. I have a varying size range of circle cutters. I based mine off of the size of my cookie. I think this one's about 3 inches, and then this is about 2 1/4, and then this is 2, and then about 1 3/4. So it goes from largest to smallest here, and we're going to be layering. So that's why I have a bunch of different sizes. I also have a silicone mat under as my work surface because this helps the fondant from sticking so that you don't have to use as much cornstarch. I also have a toothpick here. This is going to give us some of the texture that you see on the cookies, which is a lot of fun. I also have an X-Acto knife blade, but you can also just use a small sharp knife. That's fine. I like this just because it's precise. I have a rolling pin, and I have my sugar cookies. If you didn't make homemade sugar cookies, you can buy sugar cookies from the store. And then what we're making today, you can even make as cupcake toppers or cake toppers. And I'll explain that as well as we go along. I also have, since I don't have direct access to a sink with water and soap, I have dry paper towels and wet towels next to me to be able to wipe my hands in between colors, because you'll notice that some of the colors might rub off onto your hands while working. And I also have plastic bags because once fondant is exposed to air, it's already starting its drying process. So it's very, very important that you keep the fondant sealed completely when you're not using it. Okay, so I'll talk more about fondant since I did see some people say that they have never used it before. So I like to describe fondant as pretty much a rollable frosting. It's a moldable, rollable topping for cookies, cakes, cupcakes, any dessert really. You can put it on brownies, Rice Krispie treats. And it's really like a Play-Doh because once you start to knead it, it softens up and you're able to manipulate it, roll it out, shape it in any way you want. And Satin Ice comes in a bunch of different colors. Today I have red, pink, bright green, yellow, white, black, and orange. So we're working with all the bright, fun colors today. And I guess I'll start with the citrus. So I'll start with the lemon today. So we'll need a cookie, we'll need our circle cutters, our rolling pin, and the yellow and white fondant to start. And I'll put the others to the side for now. So please let me know if you guys have any questions at all, whether it's about the project, whether it's about any of the Satin Ice products or any of the fondant. So first we're going to be using the yellow. So I'm going to open that first. I'm going to take it completely out of the package. Satin Ice fondant also comes in pails. And that makes it easier to keep it stored in an airtight container because you can place it back to the pail and snap the lid on and you're good to go. These 4 ounces aren't resealable. So that's why it's very important to have a Ziploc bag next to you and then even put it into a Tupperware to make sure that it's closed completely and not exposed to air. So fondant right out of the package is a little firm, a little soft, but once you start to knead it, you start to activate the gums and that starts to make it pliable and flexible. So you can mold it and shape it. You can drape it over cakes and cupcakes and cookies, and it makes it flexible and easy to use. So what I'm doing is when I'm working with a larger piece of fondant, I use the palm of my hand and I push down and then I fold it over and I keep pushing down and I keep repeating this process until I notice that the fondant begins to become pliable. And you'll notice this too once you have it in your hands. The warmth from your hands will help also get it to be softer. And
Sarah?
Yeah.
Do they have flavors or they can add it later?
Yes. So satinized fondant is vanilla flavored and it's absolutely delicious. I mean, this literally tastes like you're putting a frosting on top of something, but you're able to roll it out. You don't have to spread it or use a piping bag. So it tastes absolutely delicious. That's why I love satinized fondant. It also comes in a chocolate flavor and there's also a buttercream flavor in the white color as well. And the chocolate is very, very good. I could eat that right when I open up the package and it smells so good as well. Okay, so my fondant is starting to get pliable. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to need all of this right now. So I'm just going to take a portion of this and then place the rest in a bag and save it for later. And I'm just going to make sure I get all the air out, twist it, so I know it's nice and sealed. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to roll this into a ball so that we can start rolling it out. And once I have it in a ball and placing it on my surface, I am going to use some cornstarch. The cornstarch is used to prevent stickiness, whether it's on your hands or your work surface. And depending on the environment, and if you're in like a humid environment, you might notice that your surface might be a little bit more sticky. Today in New York, where I am, it's very, very humid. We've had storms all day. So I'm definitely going to need to use some cornstarch. And it's important not to use too much cornstarch because this can dry out the fondant significantly if you go too heavy on it. So I really like to just do a really light dusting, spread it on my surface a little bit, get it on my hands because my hands do run warm. And this way the fondant's not going to stick to my hands and it's going to be easier to work with. So like I said, I rolled my fondant up into a ball. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm just going to press it down a little bit onto the surface just to get any air out that I might have kneaded into the fondant. And then we're just going to roll it out. Normally when I cover cookies with fondant, I like to roll it about 1/8 of an inch thick. I do not measure it. I just go by eye. I'll show you the thickness that I roll it out to. But today I am going to go a little thinner because we are layering. You'll see we have the yellow, the white, and then more yellow on top. So since these are being layered, I kind of want to go a little bit thinner when I'm covering. And then when the fondant is out, so I made these this morning and I'm able to touch these and nothing's going to, like, I'll be able to stack these cookies. If this was like an icing, you would probably have to wait a lot longer for you to be able to package these up or do anything like that. So that's another benefit of using fondant to cover cookies. So I'm just going to roll this out. Like I said, I'm just going to roll it out on the thinner side because we are going to be layering. So I just roll back and forth with the rolling pin. I like to pick it up here and there and spin it just to make sure that the fondant's not sticking to my surface. The cornstarch also makes it easier for you to be able to pick up the fondant after you cut it as well. Okay, so this is about the thickness I'm working with today. If you were covering a cake, you would definitely want it a little bit thicker so that it doesn't tear on you. But this will be perfect for the cookies today. So I'm going to start with my largest cookie cutter, and this is the same size, about the same size as my cookie. It's a little bit smaller. So it depends on what cookie size you're working with. And then, like I said earlier, if you don't want to make this for cookies, you can also make these as cupcake toppers, and then you could use the smaller size cutters as your base. And then what you would do is you would let them dry out in the air, and then they would be ready to place onto your cupcake. Okay, so I'm just going to make a cut out of this circle with the yellow fondant. And what I like to do is when I cut the fondant, I like to then give it a twist, because this helps ensure that I'm going to have clean edges that aren't frayed. Sometimes I notice with the plastic cutters, you don't get as clean of a cut as you would with a metal because they're not as sharp. So I'll show you something else that I do as well. When I pick it up, I also like to just gently rub my finger on the edges just to make sure that the edges are nice and clean. Today, I'm using the water as my adhesive for the fondant because when sugar gets wet, it does get sticky. So the water acts as a perfect adhesive. You can also use a very thin coat of icing. You can use edible glue. Some people use piping gel, whatever you have available, but the water works just fine, especially because the fondant acts as the icing on the cookie anyway. So I think this is perfect. So I'm just gently patting this down to make sure that it's adhered to the cookie. And then we are going to be going back to this color soon. So I'm just going to make sure that this is combined, rolled back up, and I'm going to place it in the bag just so that it doesn't dry out. Okay, so I have the rest over here. I'll add it into this bag. This is when you're also going to want to make sure that your hands are clean because we will be moving to white. We're lucky that we were using the yellow because that's a lighter color. I don't really have much on my hands from that, so I should be good to go. But always make sure your hands are then dry as well so that the fondant doesn't stick. So next, we are doing a small layer of white fondant on top of the yellow. I'm just going to take a small portion of this out. I have another bag. I'll take it completely out of the package. And I'm going to place my extras in the bag. Again, this is very, very important. You don't want the fondant to dry out. I'm also going to show you another example of where people might face some problems with the fondant drying out. So when you're kneading the fondant and you roll a piece out, and then if we cut out a circle and we let it sit there for too long before picking it up and placing it on a cookie or moving it to another surface, it's going to crack on you because it's already started its drying process. So right when you cut your shape, you want to either place it onto the surface that you're putting it on or place it onto a surface where it's going to be drying completely. This way, no cracking happens. I can show you an example of that too. So right now, I'm just kneading the white fondant. Since I'm using a smaller amount for the white right now, I'm just doing it within my hands. But again, you can use the palm of your hand, press down, fold, press down, fold, press down, and then your fondant will get kneaded very quickly. So mine is already very pliable. And now I'm just going to apply some cornstarch, very little, because since this is on your surface and you're rolling out the fondant and you're kneading the fondant, that's all getting incorporated into the product. So we don't want to use too much or else that can affect the consistency of the fondant and dry it out.
Like how long usually does it take to dry out?
So for a piece to dry hard for you to be able to use as a cake topper, that will take several hours. I like to describe the fondant drying kind of like a sprinkle. It's not hard that it's going to break your teeth. It's just firm enough so that you can pick it up and place it onto something. And so like if it's on a cake with frosting underneath it, it will stay soft. But if it's on a cookie directly, it's going to just firm up just a little bit, just like kind of like a sprinkle. And it depends on the firmness you need. So if I'm cutting out a circle and I plan on putting that on a cookie or the surface of my cake or cupcake right away, I'm going to want to pick that up instantly after to place it on, because right now, as it's exposed to air, it's already going to start its drying process. So as an example, I'm going to place this circle right here and I'm going to let it sit for about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to go to pick it up and I'm going to show you how the cracking will start to begin because it's already starting its drying process. So it starts to dry within minutes, but not in the sense that it's going to be rock hard. So I'm just going to roll this out again and I'm going to cut the size circle that I need to place directly onto the cookie. It's kind of almost how like a buttercream crusts. So it's firm on the outside, but then still soft on the inside. So again, I'm rolling this out kind of thin and I'm just going to dust a little bit more cornstarch on my surface so I'm able to pick up my cut piece of fondant. So now I'm going to move down to the next size circle cutter down. So this is the size that I used to cut the yellow. And now I'm moving to the next size down. So I'm just going to press down, give it a nice twist. So again, I'm picking this up right away and I'm going to place it directly onto my cookie. And again, I'm going to use some water. A trick that I like to do for my water is I like to have a paper towel next to me and I like to blot it down so that I'm not putting a ton of water on my surface. The water can cause the colors and the fondant to bleed a little bit, especially if you're just attaching a very small piece. So it's important not to use too much water. A little bit goes a long way. So I just brushed a little bit of water down on top of the yellow, and now I'm just placing the white layer on top. And I'm just gently patting it down to make sure that it's secured to the cookie. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is the yellow triangles on the lemon cookie. So now for this, I'm going to go to the next size down and then we're going to cut it into eighths, but we're only going to use 6 of the pieces because I like to give it some room so that you can still see some white in between. Okay, so now that I have this white fondant done, I'm going to roll this up into a ball and place it with my other white fondant for later. That's the beauty of fondant too, is that it has a very long shelf life. As long as you keep it in an airtight container, you'll be able to use it for months. So always save your leftovers. Okay, so I'm going to take the yellow out again. Just a small amount. Just going to give it a little quick knead just to make sure it's ready to go. And then we can start rolling it out. Again, since I am layering this fondant, I'm rolling it on the thinner side. So I like to roll back and forth, and then I like to pick the piece of fondant up, give it a turn to make sure everything gets rolled out evenly and to make sure that it's not sticking to the surface. Okay, so I'm going to just put a little bit more cornstarch. And I'm going to go to the next size down for my cutter. Press down, give it a nice twist. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leftover fondant, place it in the bag. And then I'm going to cut this down the middle. And then horizontally down the middle. So I'm going to cut this into eighths, and then each piece of this I'm going to cut in half. So we'll have 8 triangles. We're not going to use all 8 though, but this is just going to make it the size that we need. So with some simple tools, you can create really cute, pretty designs with fondant. It's a lot of fun because you can just get creative. You don't have to have a bunch of fancy tools and cutters. Okay, so I have my triangles cut and I'm going to use 6 of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to first plan out where I'm going to put these. So I'm just going to lay them out. And then I can take my water and adhere them to the cookie. So I'm just going to fan out 3 on the top and then 3 along the bottom. The points are going toward the inside of the cookie. This helps so that you can plan out how you want to space these out. And I'm able to do this because I had some cornstarch underneath my fondant. If I didn't have the cornstarch, these would definitely be sticking to the cookie. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so now, and if you need to, if the triangles are too long, you can cut a point off if you need to. And now what we're going to do is we're going to adhere these to the cookie. And we'll do that with some water. And then we'll go in with the toothpick and we'll give them some texture. So I'm just going to take my water and my brush, dab off some of the extra water so that it's not too much. And I'm just going to brush some of that water onto this fondant and it's going to stick perfectly. So I'm going to keep doing that as I go around. Just a little bit of water. Gently pat each piece down. And if you are in a more humid environment, you might not notice that you might not even have to use much water because the fondant might just adhere to itself. Okay, so I have all the triangles on now. And now is the fun part with the toothpick to make the texture. So I'm going to try to hold this up a little bit closer so you can see. So I'm taking the pointy side of the toothpick and I'm just lightly going to drag this along each triangle, just back and forth. And it doesn't have to be super neat. It's just to give it some cool line texture. And this kind of helps press it down onto the cookie as well. So I'm just lightly putting some pressure down and dragging it across. So you can see that texture. You can also use specific fondant tools to get this as well, but the toothpick works really, really well. So I'm just going to keep going around with light pressure. I start at the point and I move it back. Start at the point and I drag back. And this kind of spreads it out a little bit too. That's why I like to give some extra room in between each triangle. So I have some light pressure and I'm just dragging the toothpick along the fondant, and this is going to give some nice lined texture. You could see the difference between these and these two. And it's important to do this, of course, while the fondant is still pliable, because if you try to do this once it's dry, then it will be crusty and it won't be a nice texture. Okay, so our lemon cookie is done now. If anyone has any questions on the lemon cookie, you can let me know and we will start the next one. Also, I still have this piece of fondant sitting here from earlier. So I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to show you how it starts to get an uneven texture. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it has slight little cracks. And that's because I was letting it sit on the surface and then picked it up while it was in the middle of its drying process. So if I'm making cupcake toppers out of fondant, I purposely will cut out a shape, place it on a cutting board with parchment paper underneath, and let it sit there for about 24 hours until I put it onto a cake or cupcakes, because we want them to be to dry hard, almost like a sprinkle, so that you can pick it up and transfer it easily. Okay, so the next one we'll do the watermelon slice. So you can either do this with pink fondant or red fondant. I think I'll show it in pink with pink and bright green. I think that will be really cute. This one I obviously did bright green and red, but we'll do pink. So open up, first we're going to need the bright green because that's our first layer. So I'm just going to open up the bright green. Bright green is such a fun color, so is the pink. So I think this cookie's gonna look really pretty. I'm going to open that up. We're only going to need a smaller portion of this, so I'm just going to cut off a piece, and then the rest of this, of course, I'm going to put into a bag. If you're also using little bags to store your fondant, after using it today, just make sure that you put it into an enclosed Tupperware or pail as well, just to really make sure that there's no air getting exposed to it. Okay, so I'm just going to begin kneading this bright green fondant just until it gets soft and pliable. So I'm just using the palm of my hand and I'm pressing down and then folding and pressing down. And I'm repeating this process just until it seems like it's pliable enough. And to check if it's pliable, you can start like bending it, and you'll see if you're able to bend it and move it around and manipulate it, it's most likely kneaded enough and ready for you to roll it out or shape it however you want. So I am going to dust a little bit more cornstarch. Some people also like to use powdered sugar. And I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. Press down on this fondant just to get any extra air out that might have gotten into it. And we'll roll it out. Forward and back. Spin it to make sure it's not sticking to the surface. Okay, so we're going to go back to our large size circle cutter, or the size circle cutter you use for your cookie. And again, you can use store-bought cookies, or you can make homemade, whatever you like. You can even cut cake into like little sized circles and put the fondant on top of the little pieces of cake. That would be really cute. Okay, so I cut out my piece of bright green fondant and I'm going to put the rest in my bag. And we're gonna adhere it to the cookie. I'm just going to brush. You can even brush the water directly onto the cookie if that's easier for you. And then pick up your fondant. Place it down. It's also best to use cookies that have a flat surface. So definitely like a sugar cookie, not a chocolate chip cookie, because the chocolate chips will create a bumpy surface and then the fondant will not lay down flat. So next I'm going to use the pink fondant. I hear I used the red, but I think the pink will be really cute for the watermelon. So I'm going to do that today. The pink is such a fun, vibrant color too. This is another reason why I love the satinized fondant, is because such vibrant colors are offered that are already pre-mixed. So you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to go buy the food coloring and make a mess and mix all the food coloring in. You can if you want to make a specific color. That's also the beauty of it, but they make it really easy because this fondant's already pre-colored. And what's really cool is that you can mix different colors together to create any shade that you want. There's a color mixing chart online and you can get a lot of really unique colors doing that. But this way, they're already pre-mixed colors. You don't have to go through the hassle of getting more food color and adding the food color into the fondant, because that can get a little messy. So I'm just kneading the pink fondant just until it's soft and pliable, and I'll begin rolling this out. Like I said earlier, I am using a little bit more cornstarch than normal today because it is more humid where I am today. And that kind of can play with the fondant getting a little bit more sticky. I'm still only using a minimal amount though, just enough. That does the trick. A little goes a long way. So now I'm rolling out the pink fondant. And I am rolling these on the thinner side, like I said, because we are layering the different colors. If I was to be covering a cookie regularly, I would definitely roll it out to be a little bit thicker. The thinner also that you roll out the fondant, the harder it might be to pick up and manipulate as well. So now I'm taking the next size down circle cutter that we used to cut the bright green. And I'm just going to press down, give it a twist for the nice clean edges. And I'm going to take my water, pat down the brush just a little bit. And I'm just going to add some water to the middle of the green fondant. Some extra water dripped onto this fondant, but that's okay. Just wash that out. And we want to just carefully pick up the fondant without stretching it or manipulating the shape anymore, and then just place it in the center. I think I like the pink better than the red. So I'm just lightly pressing down just to make sure it's adhered to the cookie. And then we'll start with the seeds. And the seeds are just going to be black fondant. Very, very tiny pieces of black fondant. I'll show you how we'll make those as well. So I'm going to open up the black fondant next. as we're moving to the darker colors, this is going to be when you want to make sure that you are wiping your hands in between colors. We were just using pink, and you can see that I do have some pink on my hands from doing that, but it will come right off. We are going to black now, so the pink won't show up on the black because it's very dark. This is also a positive of these being pre-colored, because black, it's very hard to get these vibrant colors with food coloring. You have to add a lot, and that can also manipulate the fondant and the way it works. So that's why I also like to buy the pre-made colors, because it's not easy to get black, especially black and red are the hardest colors to get. Okay. So I'm just kneading the black. We're not even going to need this much. I don't know why I took out this much. We're going to need the tiniest amount. I'm going to take the tiniest portion off of this, and I'm going to put the rest away. So I'll show you two ways that you can make the seeds. I'm definitely going to need more cornstarch. I'm going to just put some on the side here, and I can just pat my fingers in it, just because we're going to be working with really small pieces of fondant here. So what you can do is you can either take a really small piece like this and roll it back and forth to make really small seeds, or you can take a bigger portion and roll out a longer, skinnier log and then cut off the pieces of the seeds.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Did you mention powdered sugar?
Yes. So if you, I said that some people like to use cornstarch or powdered sugar. You can use either or for the surface so that it doesn't stick.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm just gently, with the lightest pressure, using my fingers, just rolling back and forth over the surface of the black fondant. And I'm just creating a really skinny black string. And then I think this is definitely the faster process for making the seeds rather than rolling out little mini pieces. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make little cuts to make little seeds. These almost look like black sprinkles. That's basically the size that you're aiming for. And then to reshape them a little bit, you can just roll over them a little bit with your finger. Once I have more cut out, I'll bring them up closer so you can see. So you're just making little cuts. And then we'll place these randomly on the cookie. So now that I have a few, first I'm gonna wipe my hands a little bit. It's definitely very important to wipe your hands once you get to the darker colors, because you'll notice that if your hands are sticky, you'll notice that they will rub off a little bit. And my hands always run on the warmer side. Okay, so now that I washed my hands, I'm just gonna make sure that they're dry before going back. So, show you how little these pieces, the smaller pieces of fondant, they even get hard to pick up, but we just want seeds that are that small. And then I'm going to, this is when we really want to use the smallest amount of water. So I'm going to just tap the excess water off and then blot my brush down on the paper towel, just to make sure that the brush is just damp, just to create the tiniest moisture on the surface. And I'm just going to make little like dots on the fondant where I plan on placing the seeds, and it's just in a random pattern. You could do a specific pattern if you wanted to. So you'll see here the spots where I put the water, and that's where I'm going to place all the seeds. So now it's the easy part. You just pick them up, place them down where you made your spots. And if you notice that they're not sticking as well, then you can just add a little bit more. To the areas where you're going to be placing them. This is also nice because if you do this, you can portion out the size of your seeds better too. If you want to cut small pieces that are all the same size and then reshape them, you can do that as well. Sometimes it helps to re-roll it in your hand so that the fondant gets a little sticky so that it sticks to your hand so you can easily place it down. That's also why I like to make the little dots on the fondant with the water so that when I just place it down with my finger, it automatically just adheres to the fondant. It makes it easier when working with these smaller pieces. It would get too messy if I tried to add the water to the little piece of fondant on my hand rather than right onto the surface. Okay, so I'm just using the black fondant to make little seeds for the watermelon slice. And like I said, if you wanted to make these as little cupcake toppers, you do the same exact thing, except you're not going to adhere it to a cookie. You're just going to work with it on your surface and let it dry. I like to let my fondant pieces dry on parchment paper. And you would let them dry for at least 12 hours. I like to let mine dry at least overnight in exposed air, and then they should be good to go. So I'm just going to add 2 more seeds. And they can be varying in size too. Okay, so this is my watermelon slice cookie that I used the bright green fondant and the pink. And then this one, I had used the bright green and the red. They're both really cute. So the next cookie I want to show you guys how to do is the kiwi. We did the lemon first, and I also have the example of it in orange to make an orange slice. So you could do the same thing with the bright green and the white to make like a lime slice as well. Okay, so for the kiwi, we're using bright green, white, and black for the seeds on the kiwis as well. And then we're going to use the same texture idea with the toothpick. You could see that there's the texture because kiwi has those lines. I think the kiwi might be my favorite. So I'm going to take my bright green back out. Take a small portion. Before I do this, I'm just going to clear up any of the extra black scraps so that I don't roll the green fondant in any of the black fondant. So as much as it's important to keep your hands clean, it's also important to clean your surface as well, because the littlest specks of color could get into your lighter colored fondant, and then you'll have to re-roll it. So of course, I'm going to make sure my hands are clean. You can also wear gloves when working with the fondant. That could help too if you have warmer hands. Okay, so this was already kneaded from before. I'm just going to soften it up just a little bit. And we're gonna roll this out just like we did all the others. And we're going to use the size cookie cutter that is the size of your cookie that you're working with. I think it would be fun to even do these designs on a big 8-inch cake on the top. So you would have to probably, they don't make cookie cutters that size, but you could print out a round template that's 8 inches and then trace the fondant and then place it on top of the cake. I think that would be really cool. Okay, so I'm cutting the bright green fondant out with my larger circle cutter, pressing down, give it a twist, putting the extra away. And then we're going to place this on the cookie. So I'm going to place the water directly onto the cookie. Sometimes I think this is easier rather than holding the fondant in my hand, because that just makes it get even more soft from the warmth of my hands. So I'm just gently picking this up without stretching it. I'm just placing it right down on the cookie. Gently pressing down just to make sure it's on there. And then now you get to take your toothpick and we're gonna make the texture. So we're gonna do the same movement that we did for the lemon cookies, but this, we're using it on a bigger surface. So we're just gonna start at the center of the green fondant and you're just gonna lightly, you don't wanna press too hard that you're cutting the fondant with the toothpick, just enough so that you're making like an indent in the fondant. So you're putting the point in the center and then you're just like lightly having pressure and you're just sliding it back. And it's going to create the lines. It doesn't have to be super precise. I think it would be fun if these sugar cookies were like flavored to each slice too, like lemon sugar cookies with the lemon cookie on top. It would be delicious. Okay, so now I have all my lines scored for my kiwi. And the next part is the white. And before on our other cookies, we were going from our largest cutter to our second one down. But for this one, we're going to go from our largest to our smallest. So we really only need a really small amount here. So I'm just going to take a small portion out. Make sure that's tight, rolled out, rolled up. And this is already kneaded from before. So it's soft and ready to go. Just going to dust some cornstarch. I like to press the fondant down after kneading it, because when you're kneading it, you might be kneading air into it by folding it. And when you roll it out, you can notice some air bubbles. But if you do get any air bubbles in your fondant, you can even take a really, really skinny needle and just lightly slide it under where the air bubble is and then smooth it over and you'll be good to go. But I find that if I press the fondant down before rolling it, it really helps. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut a circle out and I'm using the smallest circle that I have. Pressing down, giving it a twist. And now I'm just going to take some water, blotting some of the extra off, and then just putting some water in the center of the cookie on top of the green fondant. And then attaching the white. And then for this, we're going to do the same texture. It's a smaller surface though, but you're going to do the same movement. So you're just going to start in the middle with the point, and you're just going to drag it back with light pressure. And you're just going to move around in the circular formation just until you reach the full circle and have all the indents. So this is what it should look like. And then the next part are the seeds again. So we're pretty much using the same techniques for all these cookies, which is nice. So again, I'm just going to take out my black fondant and we'll begin making the seeds again. So what I did for this was I rolled a ball of the black fondant, and then I used my fingers to just gently roll back and forth. And then this creates a log shape. And we want to make a really, really, really skinny, might not use this whole thing. We just want to make a really skinny, almost like a string of fondant. They actually make, if you have to make really even, these don't have to be super even because we're cutting these into pieces anyway and kind of reshaping them. But if you wanted a very like uniformed skinny string of fondant for like a border on a cake or something like that, they actually sell fondant extruders where you put the fondant in and you wind the handle and then it comes out in an even shape. So I'm just going to start cutting little seeds. And for this one, we're not going to be placing them in a random pattern. We're going to be placing them all the way around the outside of the white circle. So you might need a little more seeds for this one. So I'm just going to keep cutting. And I'm just like, as I'm cutting these, I'm also just rolling them a little bit with my pointer finger just to make sure the shape is nice. I'm sorry that I'm working with such small pieces of fondant. It might be hard to see. You want them all about the same size, but they don't have to be super perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start placing these around now. And like I did before, I'm going to use the lightest amount of water and I'm just going to blot the extra off onto my paper towel. And I'm just going to brush a very thin amount of water on the outside of the white circle. This way, all of my seeds will just stick as I pick them up and place them, which makes it so much easier. So I'm just leaving a little bit of space in between each seed and I'm just placing them all around the center. So the water works as a perfect adhesive. Just remember, you don't want to put too much because it could just get way too messy. The water could soften the fondant and just make it too sticky. Okay, so I'm almost done. Two more seeds and then we're good. So our kiwi's done. So we made the kiwis, the watermelon slices, the lemon, and then to get the orange, or if you wanted to do a lime, you can do the same technique as we did for the lemon, but obviously just use orange or green if you wanted to make a lime as well. Same would go if you wanted to do like a grapefruit, you could do the same thing. Does anyone have any questions about fondant at all or the project that we did today? Okay, if there's no questions, I'm happy that everyone joined me today. I hope that you guys learned a little bit about fondant and saw that it's not scary to work with. And I hope you guys try it out someday. You can find all of the colors of Satin fondant at Michael's. And there's loads of inspiration on satinace.com and all of our social media platforms as well. So just want to thank you guys again for joining me. And I hope you guys tune in for my future classes as well. Have a great night.